I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911. Advise ready for escape.
God!
Welcome to the 200th episode of the War Stories official podcast. I'm Tom.
I'm Chuck.
And I'm John.
And we have two highly anticipated, very special guests. Welcome back, Chris.
How's it going?
You're going to have to get closer than that, brother.
Just put your lips on it.
Yeah, just...
Oh. It just smells like vodka and shame.
And somebody that we've been asked about a lot since moving. What's up, Elliot?
Really?
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
The audience.
No, they don't.
They fucking swear to God they do.
Why? I wonder why.
Fuck, 200 episodes. 200 episodes. Not counting Locker Room. That's just War Stories. 200 stories.
It's a long time.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
We thought we'd all be up here.
Who knew when we started in my house, John's house, and your house that we would all be up here, with the exception of Charlie? I didn't.
Yeah, I'm still stuck out here, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully not for long. That's my hope. But, you know, if you go to aerospace stuff, that's a lot of that's down there too. So I've got. I thought we'd all go around and start by reminding the audience. So you guys know me, you guys know Chuck, you guys know John, right? For the audience that hasn't listened in a while, Chris, why don't you remind everybody the first time you were on what you talked about?
The first time I was on, I talked about a couple war stories I had during my service as a police officer for my city.
Good.
Anyway, I came on to tell my war stories and reach out. I thought it was a great platform that you had. I was listening to podcasts and found this one. I'm like, man, it seems like a great outlet to tell my story. And to me, telling stories is pretty therapeutic. And I thought I'd like to share mine.
And then,
And
Real quick, what was one of those? Just so that everyone knows.
So we had
In summary.
in summary,
Yeah.
one was we had a pretty decent gang shooting on the south end of our town. And we had some unsavory people sitting across the street from one of my partner's house that were connected with that person that was shot by us. And then the other one was a domestic violence incident I went on and ended up dumping that dude, me and my sergeant. I don't know if that sums it up proper or not, but...
yeah, you had a guy that was sitting outside the house of one of your partners.
Yeah,
right?
gang members, Sereno gang members. Yep.
Yeah. And then everybody knows John, but
Do they really know me?
they do.
Yeah, they know me.
They know you.
They have no idea.
They've known you. Well,
Yeah,
they
have
don't
no
know
idea.
you like that. It's not like Call of Duty know you. And then, of course, Elliot sharing with us all the old school stories and some of the greatest canine stories. Arco, the stories of Arco.
I don't remember half of it, to be honest with you.
You don't remember half of what you shared?
I remember the first one. Wasn't the first one the after 9/11?
Yeah, that was the first one.
I think that was
And
the first
then
one.
you shared the RTD, the bus story,
Yeah.
shooting that dude in the chest and they didn't
Yeah.
even penetrate.
Yeah,
shared
I
that
remember
one.
that one.
Did you ever share the Arco story of him biting that big lady who came out with a frying pan and he bit her in the ass
I think he bit her in the thigh.
or the thigh?
Yeah, you got hit in the head with a frying pan.
Who did?
You did. You had a knot on your eyebrow, and you had like one of those little what do they call those?
Thinking of
bandages?
someone else.
No, you had.
You told us that story.
Yeah, you had a. Yeah,
That's what somebody getting hit in the head with a frying pan would
I think
say.
I would remember that.
No.
Either, or maybe I got hit in the head with
That's
a frying
what I
pan.
mean, yeah.
Right.
What do they call it? The butterfly bandages. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And you had it on your forehead, or like pretty much right above your eyebrow, and I guess.
I don't
came
think you
out-
told that story because I didn't.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
remember it.
hear. I mean, the Eula Love story.
don't
Unless you were the
remember it?
gas man at Eula Love's house, I don't.
I mean, I don't know how you don't remember that, but Arco took a chunk out of her thigh.
Because he took a frying pan to the head.
Arco's bit a few people, but not a big black lady.
Well, Charlie knew that story, and I knew that story. So how do we know?
I
that
didn't
story?
even
your
say
story
big
because he
black
doesn't
lady.
remember it either.
No, I mean,
didn't even say
like
it's a big
clearly
black
you told them
lady.
when they were
I don't
kids.
remember.
Maybe I don't
I don't
know.
remember it.
Okay, can you guys
Right.
summarize the
I didn't say
story?
black lady.
You just
Yeah,
assumed
yeah.
it was a black lady?
Well, who else? I mean, flying. I mean, I've seen frying pans flying, like I'm sure you have, and I haven't seen one in other than a black lady's hand. So,
In
I
summation,
mean, let's be honest.
in
summation,
it was
Your Honor.
basically it was. I don't know if it was a warrant service or something, but basically you were waiting to do a sniff on a house for whoever hit the house.
Right.
And as you're waiting there,
Yeah.
one of the local ladies came out, and you were just happened to be the first person standing there, and you got whacked, and Arco bit her. Right, Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were going ready to serve
Dude,
a
I'm
warrant
losing
or whatever
my
for
mind.
dope.
Yeah, you must be.
Yeah.
I need to start
I
drinking.
remember it's not enough alcohol in your.
No,
It's
I
not enough
don't
blood in
drink
your
enough
alcohol
alcohol.
stream. I guess. I remember you telling us, and because I have told this story. My wife loves to get me to tell this story to people that want, like, because we'll talk dogs with people. We have a big German Shepherd, and she always wants me to tell the Arco biting the guy in the trailer, hiding under the bed, biting him on the face.
It wasn't
Barry.
Arco. That was Barry.
That was
Oh,
Barry.
Barry, was it Barry? Okay,
That was a fucked up bite too.
yeah. So she always wants me to tell that one, and
Sorry.
that's okay, because that, like, it's so obviously graphic. So that's I think that's one that sticks out to me over the course of this show. Is the
Yeah, that was a bad one.
yeah.
That was probably the worst bite I've ever seen.
I remember we had a guy on. I think it was a friend of yours, John. He had been to Iraq or Afghanistan, and he told the stories about the wild dogs in Afghanistan and how they would throw a bottle of piss out in front of them, and the dogs would go over and attack the bottle of piss because it smelled like, human piss, and then the dogs would eventually turn on each other and like eat each other. And do you remember that guy we had on?
I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
That was back in your dad's kitchen. Back in way back.
That was way back.
Yeah, way back when.
So 200 episodes. I'm trying to think. I mean, I could barely remember 10 episodes back just from looking at it on the podcast. So
Yeah, right?
I just know I think I was on the first one, and then maybe like a few later, and then that's it.
You were on the first.
No. I meant like telling a story as well.
Oh, yeah. You were, I think, so you were the first story?
Yeah.
And then your dad was the second story, and I was the third story we told. And yours was the 9/11 story. And that story fucked me up. Like, for those of you that don't want to, you go back and listen
That was a
to
rough story.
Yeah.
That was a rough.
I
story.
mean, yeah.
Talk about therapy.
Oh God, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Some of these, and then Charlie, you came on as a guest because you knew John, and you
Yeah.
told the story of, was it your OIS?
Shooting.
Was your first?
Yeah, I
story?
told the story of my OIS. Yeah.
And then that was the beginning of me knowing you, and then of course, like I said, we've talked about this. Coincidentally, as Charlie's leaving, our next guest is coming in, and they know each other. Just,
Yeah, I know him very well. He was a supervisor of mine for a very long time.
but it was somebody I had known since I was
Before
in
he
high
got
school.
knocked down.
Who was that?
It was a sergeant from LAPD.
Hannah. He came from school PD.
Yeah, it came from
went over.
LAUSD went lateraled over. No, way before John.
Yeah, I was
This
gonna
is-
say, I don't know
So he
Hannah.
was my
No, he's got, like,
campus
20
cop when I
on.
was in high school,
Oh, I see.
and he was watching out for me.
Small world.
Yeah, because he knew my dad was a cop, so he was watching out for me. And then he lateraled over to LAPD. We maintained an actual friendship after I'd graduated. Then he lateraled over to LAPD. We talked. We maintained friendships throughout the years. Then I became a cop. All this other stuff. We just knew each other for years. So I invited him on the podcast the same day we were recording the episode with Charlie. They passed each other going in and out, and hey, I know you. It was very
Yeah, it was Walt.
Yeah.
Walt Hannah. You can blur that out later if you want, but it was Walt Hannah.
No, Charlie, you can blur it out because you run this show now.
You're so stupid. You're fucking
He hasn't changed.
So I thought instead of
all these
introducing
years.
where we'd all
gosh.
come from and how we'd all come to the show, I would go around the table and let's start with Chris, and then we'll end with me and Charlie because we're always on here talking. I want to know what your favorite, like, what's the first episode you remember, and what's your favorite? You guys can't do a first because you were on the first, but what was the first one you remember hearing, and then what's the one that sticks out most to you?
Oh my gosh.
I put him on the spot like that.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
If you want, I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was
please.
fucked up.
All right. So I think the best story that I had the privilege to actually to have this person over at my house was, I think it was I don't know if it was an ex-coworker of yours that ended up lateraling over to another agency, SWAT guy, and they
Shot 4 times.
shot 4
with
times.
a 357.
Yeah, from
That was
like
my
point
buddy
blank
Adam.
range.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Oh,
probably
he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
really nice dude, and I think that whole story was wild in itself. But I, for some reason, that after all this time, that story has never left my brain, and I had thought about that story multiple times while clearing homes. Because that house was cleared.
Yes.
And then
he
it
was
went
in the fucking closet.
Yeah, and then got re-cleared, and he got shot 4 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one fucked me up because I've known Adam. We've worked the streets
Adam,
together.
that was his name.
I could tell you hilarious stories. I don't know. Did I ever tell you the story about the 647F, the drunken public that he arrested at the gas station? So I'll tell you that to tell you this. So this is the kind of relationship Adam and I had. I was coming on. He was already working. I was coming on for a swing shift. He was already working day watch, and it was towards the end of the shift. Is this report of a blonde in a pink dress drunk at the local Stop and Rob downtown.
No crime.
Run around the gas station topless, dress undone. And so...
Is this a real blonde or a...
she was a blonde lady.
Oh, was it a real lady?
So yes, she ended up being a real lady.
I'm just curious because I'm very confused these days.
I know, right? Well,
go ahead.
Bud Light can put on whatever they want on their cans.
Yes.
So I go to the station. I'm getting geared out. He hooks her up for public intox, brings her to the station, and then I'm coming out. He's got to get some paperwork from inside the station. He says, "Hey, can you do me a favor? This is the blonde from the gas station who was drunk and running around topless. Can you watch over her?" And, he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Sure." So he goes inside to get paperwork, and he's like, "You should look in the back." I'm like, "All right." So I look in the back. She's 65, made of leather. Her top is down around her waist. Her bottoms are pulled up to her belly button. She's got her feet up on the partition. And
I can smell that already.
It looked like a Arby's commercial. And I was like, he comes back and I was like, "You son of a bitch. You knew what you were sending me to watch." He's like, "Yes, I did." So he goes 10-8, and then she got revenge for me because he clicks the mic to give time and mileage on his way to county jail to take her to county jail. And he's, you hear him, key up the mic for Adam 28. And then dispatch says, "Go ahead." And he goes, "For Adam 28. And in the space of the time it takes for him to give time and mileage, you hear her scream, "Quit eating my pussy!" over the entire county radio. And so those are my memories of Adam. So when we did that episode, I had known the story from him, but he'd never gone like that long into detail. And then I heard that audio because he brought the dispatch audio.
Yeah.
And when I heard his voice, it took me back to the days of working the streets and hearing his voice in my ear on
like
the
you
radio.
were there, right?
And it had a very like it hit me like I was there. Yeah. And I remember like, fucking keep it together. So yeah, that was,
Yeah, that story was very impactful. That was probably one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. And for those of you listeners that haven't heard that, go back and listen to it. And for those of you that have listened to it, I hope that does stick in your mind every time you get in a foot pursuit with a scumbag or you go to clear a house or do any of that shit. Because, damn.
Yeah.
All right. Did you think of something or you?
No, and he brought that one up. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about, do you have any other ones that stick out to you? I mean, we had my buddy who did the anniversary drop in Normandy.
I remember that.
In full gear.
Yeah, I remember that.
Same day we had the gal who, she stopped that dude.
Oh yeah, she stopped him. Just it was like it wasn't even like it wasn't a stop. It was like
she rolled up on his car in the park.
Yeah,
and his windows were fogged up.
Yeah, it was just random.
And he decided not to kill her because she was nice.
I remember that.
Only because she was nice.
Yeah,
yeah,
there was that one.
Yeah, she was nice to him.
Those are, of course, the wood chipper story.
You know what?
Since that about that.
Oh, I didn't forget about that. Especially up here. I'll tell you, every time I see a wood chipper, I think about that.
Yeah.
To this day.
Yeah.
To this day.
I do some
I can
work.
hear one and I think about it.
I do some work with a tree service on the side, and I've seen one operate, and I've taken video of it operating,
Yeah, no.
and it turns my stomach to think how unforgiving that thing is, and it didn't even. I'm sure it didn't even blink.
No,
It didn't even blink.
No. It was probably the softest thing it felt all day. To be honest.
Do that.
Kind of like my wife.
Oh my gosh.
She doesn't listen, does she?
No, she doesn't listen. That's why I can say that. Any other ones that you can remember that stick out to you?
Gosh, that wood chipper.
Right. A flaming donkey. We never got the full story of the flaming donkey.
No, was that the series?
That was when our buddy Scott came on and talked about the first invasion of Iraq.
Oh, yeah. Scott did come on.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
I tried to get him here.
I know. That's all right.
He just happened to come in last night, I think.
Yeah, and he talked about just rolling into a town and there's a donkey on fire walking by.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, we got to get the story of the flaming donkey. And he's like, all right. And then he hasn't been back since to
I'm
tell
going to
it.
remind him. I'm going to see him tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm going to remind him
Good.
about the flaming donkey.
What else? What can you remember?
You know what sticks out is John's party story. That party call you went on to,
Oh,
and it just turned to absolute garbage.
that was garbage.
There's some good video on that shit, too.
I mean, just to think how many party calls we go to and how many don't turn to shit, but when they do, they really do a good job.
They do a great job
Yeah.
turning to shit.
That was a great story, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
I still think about that once in a while.
There's guys up here actually that, I don't know, it's come up a few times, and every once in a while I'll walk in, they're fucking playing it on YouTube. They're like, this is Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You still have the video, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's all over YouTube, too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all over YouTube.
I mean, I'm sure that's
Everything's all over YouTube now.
Yeah.
How about you, Charlie? What stories stick out to you from either ones that you listen to or ones that you have been a part of?
Major Joe Patterson, he was the Dark Horse guy. And he talked about leading Marines into in Afghanistan, and one of his guys got shot in the neck and fucking took off running, squirting blood. They lost him, didn't know where he went, and he came back covered in blood,
just taking off.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. So, and then I spoke to him, connected with him outside of this podcast. He's a really down to earth guy, and so I really liked having him on. And then I don't remember this guy's name, but I believe he works in Arizona, and he wrote a book.
Yeah.
I think he lives in San Diego now, if that's the same guy. And he went on a fucking call where it was just hellacious shooting in his street, and that one was pretty like hearing that I was like, wow.
Is that the same
fucking intense.
Is that the same guy that sent us the books?
He did send us books,
Because I think that's the same guy that ended up going to his partner getting killed,
Yes, I believe
right?
that
And he found
is.
him in a field.
No, that's
that
a different
someone
guy.
else?
That's a different guy. That was a.
But I think his partner did get killed in this one.
was that because
yeah.
was it the sergeant that
Not
saw
trying to
his
disrespect anyone.
No,
or
I
their
know.
stories, but
was it the sergeant who saw his subordinate, the guy that was on his shift, get killed?
Yeah.
I think that's a different guy. They both wrote books, but
Okay.
he was a Southern California copper. This guy was Arizona copper, and then because the guy you're talking about, he wrote a book. He'd been in like 3 shootings, right?
He'd been in a lot.
Yeah, he'd been in
He had a lot of
several.
fucking stories.
The guy we're talking about he was a SoCal copper who moved to Arizona.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
And he wrote a book. And
Yep.
okay, check this shit out. Let me see if I can look it up. For those of
What's
you,
his name?
I do know his name. So I'm
I
going to
still
look
have
up.
his book. It's up on our bookshelf.
Let's see. So his name is Keith Notek,
Keith. Yes.
and he wrote From Sorrow to Amazing Grace. It's his memoir. I actually had him send a copy to you, to me, and to my dad. My dad read it, gave it to my stepmother. She read it. They were both like, this is one of the most amazing books I've ever read or whatever. I'm trying to look it up here. They made his story into a movie.
Oh, I didn't know.
Really?
Yeah. I'm trying to find.
What movie?
That's what I'm looking up right now. So Keith Notek, author. I think it's okay. So I believe it's called One Cop's Journey. And
You know what? That's right. It's on his Facebook. If you go to his Facebook, it's on there. Because when he added me on Facebook, he was doing a lot of advertising for that.
Yeah.
Or just like reposting, kind of keeping people updated on the story and how it's going to be turned into a movie.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
So it came out in 2022. One Cop's Journey. It was starring Tim Perez Ross as him, and then Dean Cain as his pastor at his church. And he made a cameo in the movie and everything. So you're right. I completely forgot that he was on, and his book that he sent us ended up getting made into a little little film, indie film. Pretty crazy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool,
isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's just weird. And okay, so here's a weird one. I was just trying to tell them, maybe you can explain it better. I have told a story about going to the I'm Shot training, where you go and you spend the first 4 hours hearing cops tell stories about being shot, and then you spend the next 4 hours with a police psychologist talking about how to prepare your mind for it and survive it. And one of the cops that gave his story was he was on a ride along, or he had a ride along with an Explorer in the Walmart parking lot.
Marcus Young.
See? Okay.
He's a sergeant at my department.
See? Okay, so here's the weird thing. So I've been telling the story for years. I meet him when I moved up here, and we were talking and jaw-jacking. The story can you relay it better, like briefly, better than I can? You know it better than I do.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I remember is the shot to the head was not fatal, but the shot in the ass was.
Yeah, the Texas heart shot was fatal.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so go ahead.
I don't want to steal anyone's thunder.
No, we want to have him on.
Yeah.
We're trying to get that arranged, or at least the guy that was there, right?
Yeah,
but
the cadet.
If you could give the briefest of
the cliff
summaries.
notes.
Yeah, the cliff notes.
So shoplifter at Walmart, they hook up the shoplifter. It's one of our sergeants and a cadet. The cadet's 15-year-old male, and they're wheeling the arrestee out to the car, and boyfriend comes out with both hands in his coat pocket and says, "Yeah, I got a gun." Or I have a knife. That's what he said. I have a knife. Well, Marcus he's a DT instructor. So he pulls some DT stuff on him, grabs one of his arms. Well, on the free hand, he has a gun. So he empties a revolver on Marcus. Marcus is hit 4 or 5 times. I mean, he's hit pretty good.
In the hand, right? In his right hand?
His hand was disabled. I think that might have happened during the struggle.
At some point, his right hand's demolished.
Completely, he cannot draw his weapon out of his holster. He's trying to do it with his left hand, and he can't do it. He can't unsnap. So he calls the cadet. He waves the cadet over. Meanwhile, the cadet, to his credit, is calling out 1199 and does all the right things on the radio. Runs over, pulls the service pistol out of Marcus's holster, hands it to him. Marcus with his left hand. Meanwhile, bad guy's trying to get the rifle out.
He's in the car.
He's pushing all the buttons, trying to get the rifle out.
Oh, so they've separated.
Yeah.
Oh,
so he thinks Marcus is down. I'm going to go grab the rifle. Doesn't think about getting his girlfriend's actually in the back of the car.
Yeah,
right?
She's hooked up in
so he's not trying to get girlfriend out. He's trying to get the rifle out of the car. And so he's looking for the button, and Marcus shoots a few times. One of them hits him in the head.
Yeah, the way I remember him telling me, he shoots, the guy looks at him, and he gets him right between the eyes.
Just a perfect shot.
Right in the forehead. And the guy goes down, and then pops back up like a whack-a-mole with a hole right in the middle of his forehead.
Yeah. That round actually hit his skull, traveled
around
around under the skin and back out.
Yeah.
Then turns around again to get the rifle out,
Yep.
shoots him in the ass, goes up, Texas headshot right through his anus into his heart and kills him.
Yep.
Wow.
So when I was the SRO, that was my car.
Was the car that got fuckered
so
up
it had
shooting?
bondoed over bullet holes. That's like the perfect school car, right? Like,
Oh my god.
don't mess with him, kids. He's got bullet holes in his
That's
car.
a small world. Like I met that guy, told that story. I saw that story made a huge impact on me when I was going to narc school and all this other stuff and going to training. I had like 3 years on the department when I met that guy and heard that story. And then lo and behold, here I am fucking 15 years, 20 years later. And he's like, yeah, I worked for that. That's my buddy. It just is so. And doesn't the cadet live up here now?
Yeah, he's playing poker with us the other day.
Yeah,
really?
Right.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
When we played poker the other day.
Right here.
Right there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw any names out.
Yeah,
It's
no,
supposed to be.
I know.
Yeah, it's small.
That
like-
cadet never became a cop?
Oh yeah, he is.
No, he was playing poker with us the other night. Yeah,
He's doing very well. I mean, he gave me some information. We linked up.
Yeah,
after.
good.
He's a good dude.
What a
yes.
small
So we're
world.
gonna get him on.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
What a small world.
It is. The
right.
law enforcement community is small.
It's very small.
Well, that's kind of like that weird thing where you say to somebody, "Oh, do you know him?" And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of cops in this world, but you might as well ask because you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I've ran into several people up here that I worked with,
Well,
not knowing that they were up here.
Oh.
Just in passing, like, oh, do I know you? Like, oh yeah, we know each other. It's
Yeah.
just random.
Well, I told you,
Had a missing person.
one of my partners who worked narcs with me, he was the case agent when I first went undercover. So it was my first like legit undercover assignment. And I'll tell that story someday, and he was the case agent running me. And, he moved to Colorado after they medically retired him. They fucked him over too. And they moved to Colorado. I move up here. I text him on the anniversary of a critical incident we got involved in. And he's like, yeah. I said, hey, I moved to Idaho. He goes, really? Yeah, me too. Where? I said, I thought you were in fucking Colorado. He goes, no, fuck Colorado. I moved to Idaho. I said, where? And he goes, just north of Coeur d'Alene. And I went, where? And he goes, well, you know where Sandpoint is? And I said, yeah. And he's like, I'm in Sagal, just south of Sandpoint. I fish Priest all the time, which is where we're going to go fishing. And I was like, you're dude, I'm in Coeur d'Alene. So we went hunting. So here I am hunting with a guy I worked narcs with almost 2 decades ago.
Right.
It's crazy.
So it is a small world.
It's kind of a landing spot too.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
it's a safe haven.
The big LZ for some former law enforcement guys up here, I think.
I remember when I had a few years on the job, all the older guys retiring and going to this place called Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at it going, why the fuck would you want to go there?
Yeah. It's in the middle of nowhere.
It's in the
You're
middle of
crazy.
nowhere. They got snow and shit. Why the hell? We're in
Yes,
Southern
we knew
California. And here we are.
I guess you found out.
Could have bought that property a long time
No
ago.
shit.
Right, yeah.
God.
No shit. Can you imagine?
So, what have you guys like? What's been your biggest surprise from doing this show and being involved in this show? Oh, Chuck, sorry, we talked about your was Joe Patterson, but did you want to talk about your impression of the
Poor
first
Chuck,
time?
man. He's just
Hey,
feeling left
Charlie, you should
out.
take it personally right now.
So stupid.
No, but, I didn't ask you what was your first
He's
impression.
butthurt.
Huh?
He's butthurt.
I don't.
Can only one person talk at a time for a second? Hold on. It was like, coming in one fucking speaker. What?
I had said to you, you didn't give us your first impressions. Like, what was the first? Had you listened to the show before you came out? Before John invited you on, or
I hadn't listened to any podcast at that time. And then I was asked to come on and
because I can't
So, no,
remember
I
what
hadn't.
you said.
listened. What?
I can't remember what you said when you if you had listened to it before or if you had
No,
never
I,
listened.
at that time I had not. No,
Okay.
I had not, because I hadn't listened to any podcast. I didn't even know what really of a podcast was. And then after that, I started getting into more of them.
Right. And
Mainly
now
comedy.
I mean, even then, there was a lot of podcasts out. But even I know a lot of people were, what's a fucking podcast?
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays you got like Donut Operator and,
Everybody that was on like a Facebook platform or like all these different platforms, as soon as like this started to become a thing, they just switched to like, they would just do it live.
Right.
With microphones in front of their face.
Right.
And then there you had the conception of podcasts.
But, I feel like
YouTube
one of the
video.
things that we've done, and we've turned down advertising, we've done things because we want to keep it raw, real, like legitimate stories and stuff like that. And I feel like when you look at some of these other guys, they watch body cam videos and they make jokes, as opposed to like really listening to what fucking people have to say and then breaking it down. And I that's my impression. I don't know. But my question was then, what do you guys think is your biggest surprise, or what has been the biggest revelation you've realized from being involved with this? For me, it's probably been how big of an impact just from the emails we've gotten that people have said, hey, I remembered what you said and I changed my tactics, or I did this, or I did that, or you know what I mean? That's probably been the biggest thing for me, but I'm curious to what your biggest surprise or what you've kind of gleaned out of doing this for, God, now, 4 years?
No, I surely haven't done as many as you guys, but looking back, I would say the therapeutic end of it for me personally.
Right.
And then obviously I'm sure it folded over onto other people that I don't even know.
Right.
But I would say that was probably the biggest impact on me, that the timing could have been more perfect for me personally.
Yeah, we still have, I have an episode recorded in the can
I know.
that has never been aired.
I know.
It's like our vintage bottle.
Right.
Never hit the shelf.
When if I ever get permission to edit it, or if we ever re-record it, it's the story of how you retired.
Yeah, and you want to know what's funny about that? And we were having a conversation about this a little while ago, myself and my wife, and it would be interesting for me to hear it again because my headspace then, and my headspace now is the polar opposites.
Right.
And so it's
definitely.
What's that?
I said you should definitely re-record that or listen to it, and then if it's good, I mean,
I'll give you
publish it.
I'll burn down the raw audio.
It.
You still have the raw audio?
You sent it to me. Yeah.
I didn't know if you still had it.
As a matter of fact, on a side note, about maybe 3 months ago? About 3 months ago, it resurfaced. That whole incident resurfaced.
Oh, really?
Oh,
and, and I went out to Tennessee for an interview.
Oh.
Yeah, myself and the two others.
Really? Why Tennessee, if you can say?
Oh, just because of getting everybody in one place.
Got it.
Yeah, I happened to be the one that was asked out as far as where I was, and so it was just easier to get everybody into Tennessee. Right. No other reason.
Now, can I ask what you were interviewed for? It was like a book, or was it a newspaper?
No,
article?
it was TV.
TV.
Yeah, it was news.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, which
Are
was
they
very
going to air it
interesting.
on the Rookie?
What's that?
Are they going to air something like that on the Rookie?
No, it was news.
No,
It was
news.
news.
They're
like
going to use
real
that
news.
to make an episode of The Rookie, is what he's saying.
Well, there's not a joke about that because
It wouldn't surprise me if they used that to make an episode of TV.
That was a topic of discussion at the time because
Oh,
the
really?
people that interviewed us
You should sell your story.
didn't even know what they were getting into.
Right.
Because remember, as you know, what we're talking about actually that, in their 3 minutes or 4 minutes of airing it,
Right.
it's 4 hours of information
Right.
that they otherwise didn't have.
Correct.
And so by the end of the day, with all the information that they had,
And
it was mind-blowing.
So I'll delete this if I'm not allowed to say it, but
Yeah.
let's just suffice to say, without getting into the story, you were involved as the plaintiff in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against the Los Angeles Police Department.
I was.
And it wasn't even, it didn't start with you,
No.
but it certainly ended with you and your partner, because you and your partner stuck up for your other partner
There were three of us, yes.
and got fucked over. And you said, I still remember you telling me you walked in, fucking slapped your badge on the desk and said, "Fuck you, I'm out of here." Like a movie, you see cops.
I actually went in that day not intending to do that.
Right. Like you told me, you said, I walked in there and then
I told my wife after I did it. I was on my way home and I said, "Hey, just so you know, I left."
Yeah.
You did what? Yeah, I left.
Yeah.
So that's how you exited?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk about the end of it.
I would have walked back in and just grabbed it real quick. I need that for a shower.
That's
No, I know.
That's not what happened.
No, I know, but
I
it
know.
was that was the gist
Yes.
of what happened was
yeah. I didn't go in. I didn't go
saying,
in that day.
"Fuck you, I'm done."
Yeah, I
Right.
didn't go in that day for that.
It's not actually slamming your, like you didn't turn in your badge and your gun to the captain.
Though, hold on, we're saying way too much. We're saying
True.
this is
We
way
just
too
need
much.
the episode.
Yes.
Okay, we'll
Either
just leave
that
it.
happens or it doesn't. Like it doesn't have to happen, but I'm saying like
No,
we
it
can't-
does.
We can't
We
give
still have
too
to have
much.
it,
We
yeah.
can't give too much because it's its own thing.
But, yeah, I agree with John. Like, if it has to happen, if it's going to say more, it has to happen now. If not, we got to hold
No,
it for a
you
different-
can't do it now.
different day.
It's
no.
No.
way too involved.
So I thought I would go into, because I asked people for some emails. Some emails I'm just going to kind of give a poll, or some general thoughts on what, because people have just been sending in what their favorite episodes have been, but some people have actually like written emails with thoughts, and longtime listeners. So Eric has been a longtime listener, and he says, "Hello, I just wanted to pass along some of my favorite episodes from War Stories. the number one is the Corporal Patino story. So this was the Marines in Afghanistan series, and Corporal Patino was one of the Marines that was killed. I believe he had been in the Navy, and then changed from the Navy to the Marine Corps, and then was killed in line of duty in Afghanistan in the Sangin Valley. So he wanted to mention one of those. This is one of my favorites. The Navy Corpsman and the NAM. Mm-hmm. I loved our 2 Vietnam veteran. I would love to get more Vietnam veterans on, but we interviewed a Navy Corpsman who had been in Vietnam with the Marines, and then we interviewed an a Huey gunship pilot.
Oh yeah, that guy was talking about shooting people down, and I'm just like, and then he's like, yeah, they fucking shot that guy down. No. And I'm like, holy shit, dude.
So we could get into that one a little bit, because what I remember from that one, the one that fucking stuck out to me, well, the 2 parts that really stuck out to me, I think he talked about. I don't know if you weren't present, but did you listen to the?
No, I don't think I heard this.
So he fucking tells us. He goes, I'm gonna tell you right now. A lot of people want to like be sad about what they did over there, but
he was
fuck them.
Cold.
He goes, fuck them. They tried to kill me. I killed them first. It is what it is. I made it out. They didn't. I'm not going to apologize. And it was kind of refreshing.
Right?
It was kind of refreshing. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Oh, honesty.
And he's made peace with, like, it's like, yeah, it is what it is. Right. Mm-hmm. And so he tells us, do you remember he said, so the first thing was they had to refuel on a brown water Navy boat. So it's brown water Navy, and they go down and they're refueling, and whoever was the little captain, lieutenant in charge of this brown water Navy boat, he had his camera with him, and he's like, hey, I want to get some cool shots of you firing off your rockets. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, fuck it. I can fire off a couple rockets for a photo op for this dude that's refueling us. So they take back off of this little brown water Navy boat, and they aim the helicopter, it was a Huey, at a bunch of trees literally right off the water, so that they could get this cool shot of the helicopter's big as life firing out his rockets into these empty trees. And he goes, so I hit the rockets, and boom, 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 they go off, and the fucking trees started shooting back.
Yeah, they started getting lit up.
And they started getting lit the fuck up, and they're like, "Oh my god!"
It is for real, guys.
Then it was on. Like they turned the guns on the brown water. There was a bunch of VC hiding in the bush, waiting for the boat to go by. And they're like, "They don't see us. They don't see us. Fuck, they see us!" And then the fight was on.
Oh shit!
The fight was fucking on.
Think that helicopter surprised them?
I think surprise a little bit. But then the one, I don't know if you remember this part of the story. This was, I think, even more my favorite was, he says they picked up a dude, and I don't remember. I have to go back and listen to it. I don't want to misquote, but they had a dude in the helicopter who's like, "Hey, right over that hill, there's a NVC training facility." And he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yep, with people there now." And they're like, "Really?" And they're on like a chauffeur mission. They're just picking this guy up and taking him back to base. The guy's like, "Yeah." Without any orders,
just like, fuck it.
They flew over the hill and mowed him all down.
That's a freebie, right?
just flew over the hill and went, "Oh yeah, there they are."
That's a freebie.
And
fuck, the rules of engagement back then were just so wild.
Well, I'm pretty sure he said that was against the rules even back then.
Yeah, there wasn't any.
But so that one, and then that same, it was a back-to-back, because we had 2 Vietnam veterans on together to discuss their experiences together, and so they were on each other's
And they were polar
episodes.
opposites.
They were polar opposites. One was really deeply fucked up by it, and one was like, fuck them, right? But the corpsman, do you remember when he said, going up that hill, and they had napalmed the bottom of the hill below them? So they're taking the hill as the napalm's climbing up the hill to burn them. Yep. And he said, he told us that the Marine that was right next to him was scared shitless kid who just grabbed him and said, Doc, if they don't let the fire get me. If the fire gets to us, you got to do me. And he's like, you're not, okay, but no, that's not, we're going to be all right. And they made it out. But it was that level of like, holy shit, fear of don't let me burn to death. Just kill me. Mm-hmm. And he was fuckered up by it.
He was. Yeah, he was.
So that was I remember those very much so. So episode 122, From State Police to the Highway Patrol. And he said, in all honesty, it was kind of hard picking 3 episodes. I do have to say that those 3 are special to me because they are shared with by my family. Corporal Patino's story was told by his Marine brothers in arms. Let's see, Godfather sharing a story of war that not many talk about, which is the Navy corpsman. And then Chuck listening to his dad telling some of his own war stories. So that's why he loved the From State Police to Highway Patrol, is because it was you listening to your dad talk about some of his stories.
Oh, and I thought that shit was weak too. I was like, yeah, fuck, dude. I was like, come on, man, tell him the stories. Like, act like this isn't here. Tell me the stories like that you used to tell me, like the real dirty shit.
Okay, so that's the funny thing, because John's been on the show with his own father a lot. I had my father on one episode. Charlie had his father on one episode. I had the same problem. I was deeply disappointed by the stories my dad shared because he's told me other things. I'm like, you need to tell that shit. And he
didn't want to tell.
He wouldn't. I mean, like, I remember my dad, he slept in home, like he dressed up like a homeless dude and slept on Skid Row overnight when the Skid Row slasher was running around cutting up bums, and shit like that. And then there's some other ones that probably should never be told because it was the 70s. Right. And
well, my dad had fucking stories of spitting Levi Garrett into people's eyes. He said it was better than the mace they would, supply him. And you just spit in their face and then like shit like that. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why aren't you telling that shit?
My dad had a partner that would do way worse than that.
During the riots, we would just beat the shit out of him. We just walk up to him, fuck him up, and then kick him down the street. And he's like, today it's a bunch of pussies. And I'm like, oh my, like, you need to tell those stories, not the other fucking stories. I don't remember what he said, but, horrible, but I was disappointed. Severely.
How has it been for you being on the show with your dad? Because you and your dad have a much different relationship than, say, me and my dad. You guys are a little more, I guess your generations of law enforcement are more closely connected. My generation of law enforcement with my dad's generation of law enforcement is probably much further apart. So
yeah, that's well, yeah. I mean, we were working at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I mean.
I didn't even really think about that.
Yeah. So my dad retired 5 years before I came on the job. And he had been a desk jockey for the last 10 doing emergency operations stuff. So
that's kind of weird to think because I've called him and he's done tracks for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, me too.
Yeah. And Charlie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
so
you're right.
How's that?
That is weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think of like,
I never really thought about it. It was just normal.
Yeah. So it's kind of okay. At the time, it's work, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
like, it's not. I'm not thinking like, oh man, I get to watch my dad work. Like, first of all, I grew up in it. Like, I just grew up in it, right? So it's not
true.
Maybe from someone on the outside, they might even be on scene and being like, that's kind of cool. Like, he's actually doing something with his dad at work. Like that's cool, right? For me, at least in that moment in time, I'm like, this is just work. Cool, we got a canine here. Let's do our thing. Blah blah. It's all business. I guess I could sit back now years later and be like, that's a really cool experience because not a whole lot of people get to do that. Like, who gets to do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I never really thought about it until right now.
Yeah, my dad went out for cigarettes 30 years ago. I haven't seen him since. That's pretty cool.
Oh my god, I wasn't ready. I was not ready.
No, I'm just kidding.
I was not ready to go either. Oh my god.
Do you think it's brought you closer though? I mean, you got like the father-son bond plus the brother law enforcement bond too?
I don't know. I mean, he pretty much hears a lot of shit he doesn't want to hear from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I heard you guys talking before we even started the show where you were able to
So I'll
gripe about your own department now or issues you're having now. And your dad was able to give relevant current advice. My dad was only ever able to give me historic, like, as a cop, this is a truism for all time, as opposed to like, no, this shit is happening right now, and here's what you
I'll
should
tell
do.
you my take on that. It was interesting you brought that conversation up. So I understand. So like in this specific conversation that we were talking about, without going into it, I understand what he's saying because I've been there.
Right.
But then I also understand that I'm in a different perspective now. Fast forward 30 years.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay. So you're saying that you're listening to him, understanding that the advice you give him is in the rear view, as opposed to
No,
being
I have
in the moment?
No, I'm trying to.
You can see it from both sides. You can see it from his
Yes.
perspective, but you also see it from that outside perspective because now you have been detached from law enforcement for such a period of time to where you can objectively think about it.
and
in a way
gone,
that he
like
cannot.
in the
and
rear
gone
view.
through
Hindsight's
that
20/20.
and gone through that ringer more than once.
Right.
So,
But you're,
Yeah, it's
do
an
you think
interesting-
the fact that you don't have the emotion connected to it anymore, like you're out, you've taken the breather, does that affect it at all?
my
or-
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think he can look at things not emotionally. I'm emotionally
because he's living
invested
it.
in it. Like
Right.
I'm in it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what I mean.
Makes sense.
So when he's saying it, I understand because maybe not the exact circumstance, but I have felt that when I had 5 years on the job, 10 years on the job, 15 years on the job.
Right.
I mean, I've had these.
You remember it.
I remember it. I remember the
Right.
feeling and I remember what I was thinking. And then looking back now, fast forward 30 years, now looking back, thinking, how I handled it, could I have handled it a little different? I see it from a different perspective. Not that I handled it wrong back then, but I handled it in a way with the information that I had at the time, in my 10 years as a cop or 15 years or 20 years. So it's a weird situation because I get it, I feel it, I understand it. I'm kind of like him,
Yeah.
but I'm not.
So I'll ask you this then, because I'm going to ask Charlie the same thing, because I don't speak to it. And maybe if your dad really didn't go out for cigarettes, would you guys have made good partners?
We would have been fired.
Oh, totally.
Title 18.
Oh, totally fired.
Way to be honest.
Remember what happened in Long Beach? That was about the extent of what would have happened.
Just recently in Long Beach?
No, when we went fishing.
Oh yeah, right after my first OAS, we almost shot another dude while we were going fishing.
I don't think you ever
We
told
didn't
that
even-
story on
Jesus.
the
We didn't
story on
even-
the show.
when you're off
I
duty?
remember you
Yeah.
telling me.
Oh, okay.
I remember they told me this story off the air.
But to answer your question, we didn't even talk. We just
Right.
both did exactly the
Right.
same thing, knowing what the other was going
Right,
to do.
I remember that.
All I literally said was, I was like, I can't remember my exact
Can you
words,
tell
but-
it? Can you?
He said something like the guy's coming up behind
Yeah,
us or
basically,
something like that.
in
I
a
remember.
nutshell, I mean, it was really
Yeah.
I was on leave for my first OIS, so I was on paid days.
Right.
And
This was
so-
your first story.
No, I think my first story was my deployment.
Was Afghanistan.
I thought your first story was the shooting in the parking lot of McDonald's or whatever the fuck.
No,
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't
maybe.
think so. But either way,
Yeah.
so
Wait, on a side note, I just got off a cruise ship, just so you know. When that
You had
happened.
just gotten off a
Yeah, we
cruise
just
ship.
came back from vacation.
Okay.
And he had
so
the
for
OAS.
for clarification, you're on a cruise. He gets in an OIS. You get off the boat. He's like, Dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
who told you?
Sarah.
Oh, yeah. The girl I was dating at the time.
Okay.
Ended up
All right.
relaying that message. Anyways,
So you're on admin leave.
Yeah. So I'm an avid fisherman. I want to go fishing, and it was just you and I, right? Mm-hmm. And then anyways, we go out on one of those deep sea fishing. It was like a half day or whatever we're doing, but you have to be there at the ass crack of dawn.
Right.
It was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and we pull into the harbor in Long Beach, and Long Beach is it's a shithole. But 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning at the docks, you'd probably be all right, right?
Right.
So, anyways, we pull in. We're the first. I think we were the first ones there. Or maybe another car or two, maybe in the lot, and we're trying to find because each dock has a slip and each one has its own separate parking lot. So we're trying to figure out which parking lot we're supposed to be in. Well, so we drive the road a few times back and forth, and of course, there's one fucking homie sitting on one of the corners, just dressed down, fucking asshole, big white shirt, just eyeballing us.
At
Summer
4
uniform.
in the fucking morning.
Yeah. Summer uniform.
Oh yeah, just eyeballing us every time I go back.
Dickies in a big white shirt.
So I took notice of it, and I'm like, all right, well, he probably thinks we're casing him because we just keep driving by, right? And ultimately, the parking lot we had to go into was the exact same fucking corner he was standing on.
Of course it was.
So so on purpose, I rolled down my window as we drove by and kind of gave him the nod, like, "Hey, dude,
We're
I
cool.
ain't here to fuck with you.
Right.
Like, this is not who you think. Whatever." So he sees me, I see him, roll up my window, and then I'm trying to park, And as I'm parking towards the back of the park, or the farthest end of the parking lot, there was only one way in and one way out, and that was where we came from. And as I'm slowing down, I look at my side, and I see him, hands in his pockets, just beelining it for our truck.
From behind us.
From behind us. And I remember saying, I was like, I remember looking at him and looking back, I'm like, hey, he's coming, like, or something like he's walking up on us or something. And I zoomed up into the parking lot, threw that shit in park, and before I knew it, we were both out of the car with a friggin' gun pointed right at that dude's face. And before
I'm
I can
surprised
even
you didn't shoot him.
Oh, you have no idea how close it was.
Yeah, I'm so surprised.
Yeah, whoever that vato was in Long Beach, you can count your lucky stars.
There was pressure out of that trigger. There was no doubt that guy was about to get lit the fuck up. And honestly, in that moment, we could have done it. There's no doubt in my mind we could have done it. And before I could say anything, what did you say?
I said, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I'm going to fucking kill you. Oh, no.
Because I'm charging him.
He said, so we're both charging him on both ends of the truck. Right. And he says, hey, we're going to fucking kill you. Let me see your hands. And you could just see the eyes just, like, just his eyes are like, fucking deer. And his hands come out super slow. And
he starts backing up.
Yeah, he just started backing up.
Hey, you've been practicing.
You've been through this before.
Wrong truck, motherfucker. What the hell?
Yeah,
it was funny.
Yeah, that was literally like not even a week after my first shooting.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been so good for your reputation.
Oh yeah. You're like on the razor's edge already, right?
You got a month.
Actually,
you got a month off.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
Chuck, would you have been good partners with your dad?
My dad on the state police. I think I'd had a lot of fun. My dad when he went to CHP. I think at the beginning of his career, we probably would have had some fun. Towards the end of his career,
nobody has fun on the
I
CHP.
think
I was going to say at CHP, how much fun can it be?
Can't handle.
I would have fucking hated him. To be honest, I would have probably been like, "Don't talk to me. You're fucking horrible. Leave me alone." Like type of shit. Because I just think back to high school. He was an asshole, you know. And I could just imagine him because I've had supervisors they were like that. And I was like, "Fuck, dude, can't wait till you're gone."
Yeah.
And then they wheel out somewhere else, and I was like, "Thank God." But I think I would have had a lot of fun when he was younger, but not when he got older. Just because I think that he was, in that leadership role as a watch commander, and he not necessarily drank the Kool-Aid, but he wasn't. He really thought more about liability at that point, and I just think that would have been
not me.
Pretty shitty.
Chuck, were you able to bounce stuff off your dad? Like,
no.
Both of you and Chuck, John, but were you able to bounce stuff off your old man? Like to vent.
Yeah. So when I first came on, I was doing like reports every fucking day, and I was like getting 2 arrests a day, and like doing 5 reports a day. I was overtime every day, and at that point, like there was no paid overtime. It was all time bank, so it didn't really matter. So they would work you to the bone. And I remember talking to my dad, being like, "I'm gonna fucking quit. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't fucking fun. I'm not learning anything. In fact, I'm learning how to write." And then so I was able to bounce that off of me, get my mind right. He said, "No, stick it through." And then anytime I had like a really like tough call, I could bounce things off of him. But I also had a big support group of other people that were also in law enforcement or former law enforcement that I could run things by.
Yeah.
They were like, "Hey, I dealt with this, I dealt with that. This is kind of what I'm going through." But then there's also things you don't talk to your parents about. So
sure, yeah, I can understand that.
I was able to somewhat bounce stuff off my dad, but unlike you two, my dad and I are very different. I love my dad. I have always wondered if my dad and I would have been friends or good partners, because I often think I'd have been looking at my dad going, "Let's fucking go," and he'd be like, "No, calm down. Let's figure this out." And I'm like, we'll figure it out after. Let's fucking go, right?
Go ahead, finish. No,
Let's see if you're going to say what I'm about to say.
I'll let you know. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I feel like my dad was a lot more reserved, and he was willing. He was down for it. Like, he was willing to do the job, but I feel like he was a lot more career and family conscious, and I was a little more cavalier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But that's also age.
No, I mean, even like, I think my dad at 24 was 40, right? Like, so to give you guys some perspective, I talked to my dad one time. He worked Metro, right? And for those of you that don't know, Metro's a unit within the Los Angeles Police Department. It was very early on in the formation of the unit. You'd call into work every day and they'd tell you, this is the area where you're going. You dress up in uniform, jump into a plane wrap car that you took home every night, and then you'd go over there and you'd crush whatever crime was happening in the area. And when he thought, oh, I'll go to Metro because that's a good way to promote, is you go to Metro, you punch your ticket, you can promote from there. And he got the preacher award, and it was the statue of the horse's ass.
That's the horse's backside.
Right.
Yeah.
When he promoted from them.
Yeah.
And he told me he got a reputation for being, a guy who might not, because I never doubted that my dad would have smoked somebody if he had to, but he also carried his Bible to work.
Interesting.
Which was weird. And the LAPD guys didn't know what to do with it. And then I asked him one time, because he was on Metro.
Maybe that's the reason he never had to use his gun.
Maybe. It may be the reason. And that's the thing. I'm not.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. The reason I say that is because I had one in my backpack that I've been carrying around for 30 years.
But he got this reputation as being, because he carried his Bible, he was a guy who wouldn't shoot. And that's not him at all. If you know him, that was the first question he asked me when I was going to the academy is, are you ready to kill somebody? And he's had shotguns in people's stomachs and all that kind of stuff. And he even told me, he said, I'm jealous of you having been in these things because I was never tested like that. I just got away with it without ever having to do that. But at the same time, when I asked him, why didn't you ever go to SWAT? Because SWAT, for those of you who don't know, in LAPD, SWAT is in the same division that the Metro is. And he said, well, it was just a boys club and they wanted to just go out drinking and partying and hang out and do all the things. And I just wanted to go home to my family. Mm-hmm. And
there's some validity to that.
There's absolute validity to that. And I respected it, but I was like, I don't know if I would have had that, like at his age. Yes. In my 40s.
Sure.
So my dad at a younger age was a lot more, I guess, circumspect than I would have been. So that's why I don't know. Like, we might have gotten along as partners, but it might have been that kind of like oil and vinegar, like Lethal Weapon, He's Danny Glover.
Who's who? Yeah, I was going to say who's who.
Shit. So that was why I asked you guys, because I've always wondered, who's a fucking basketball player? LeBron James, right? His kid is getting into the NBA right now. He's still playing. And pretty much any team that drafts his kid knows that they can trade for LeBron James or sign LeBron James at any time, because he specifically said, I want to spend at least 1 year, one season playing with my own kid on the same team. And I thought about that, and I thought about, like, you guys, you got to do that. You weren't necessarily on the same team, but you at least got to play on the same field.
Until you guys brought it up 20 minutes ago, I never thought about it.
Yeah, same.
Right.
It was just normal. It was just the way it was.
It was just Tuesday. But that's what we talk about on this job. But all the things that occur to other people, oh my God, can you believe this? And you're like, well, it's just fucking Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, we've hit the hour mark. So if you guys are cool for part 2, we're going to go for part 2.
I don't care.
All right.
I don't know where to be.
So that's the end of part 1 for our 200th episode. And we'll see you again next week for part 2 of this episode, where we'll be discussing some short stories and catching up with each other and talking a little more shit and having some strong drinks. So, Chuck, do you want to give us our send off real quick?
Yeah, if you like today's podcast, please go and follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook and our website. And if you have a story you would like to share, please go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com. And send me your story. I will get you booked. We're looking for law enforcement veterans, fire, police, medics, and those who work in, the ER and things like that. So thank you for all your support and stay safe.
All right, fellas, we'll join you on part 2 next week. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on it.